When we're stuck in our minds, we're out of our body. And when we're out of our body, we are stuck in our minds. And when we're stuck in our minds, we create this inner tension, this momentum within ourselves that does not feel good. And when we don't feel good, we feel resistance. We feel that something needs to be changed. And we oftentimes try to problem solve that in our minds. In this video, I want to share a quick story with you as to how I go about getting out of overthinking, getting out of the resistance that I feel when it comes to my work, or when I find myself feeling that things are a little bit harder than they need to be for whatever reason. It was a couple of days ago. I had my day scheduled out. I don't do this often, but sometimes I have tasks that I have laid out and I want to do them at certain times. Sometimes that works for me, sometimes it doesn't. I started to lay these different things out and I had a big plan ahead of me of what I was going to do. Now I started to sit down and look at this thing that I was going to do, which at the time was some marketing material. It was some research combined with messaging and wording and communication stuff that I was working on for my business. And I sat down and everything within the first 15 to 20 minutes felt really, really challenging. Everything felt over complicated. Everything felt like this big mountain I had to climb. What I didn't realize at that moment in time was that I was stuck in my head because there was an emotion underneath the surface that was not being felt. Now, what I mean by this is that oftentimes this inner tension that we feel within ourselves, we can get very, very good at pushing that away. We can get very good at suppressing it. And when we suppress it, we actually create an influx, right? An abundance of thoughts in our minds that start to race. And they can be negative. It can be a lot of fear. It can be doubt. It can be thoughts that go against the direction that you want to go. And then you start thinking about the thoughts that you're thinking. And then all of a sudden, you're now in this whirlwind of just thoughts pulling you in different directions. When I was experiencing this resistance in that moment, I pulled myself away from my work. But what my mind was telling me was the opposite. Go and follow the schedule. Do the task you said you were going to do. Push through, in other words. Now, this is a pattern that I have been letting go of over the last number of years, which is this forcing energy behind action, regardless of how you feel, because that's how I was led to believe you get things done. And that worked for me for a while until I decided that that's not how I wanted to live my life. That was my era of the performing hustler, is what I call it. So as I pulled myself away, I went away and I started to have a conversation with a friend. I was still feeling heavy, was probably the best way to put it. Like I was carrying something. Now, again, I still wasn't aware. I was still stuck in my mind. And this is how the mind can catch you oftentimes, because you start to then problem solve everything. Maybe things are more complex. Maybe I should be doing this. Maybe I should be doing this and this. Maybe this needs to change here. Oh, shit, I don't know what to do with this. It's just all of these different things that we get caught up in our minds oftentimes. And as I started to have a conversation with a friend, I started to realize pretty quickly that I could feel myself with this sense of fear underneath. And I was feeling a little bit emotional almost in that moment as I started to speak things out loud. And I started to realize then, okay, this is not about the thoughts at all. This is not about the tasks. This is about something else entirely. So I walked away. I took a rest. I sat down. And you know what I did? I put on some music. And music has always been an amazing thing for me to really connect with my emotions, to connect with myself again. Music has been such a massive part of my life. Many, many stories around, going off to set up different events when I was in my college days. And music has just been such a beautiful, beautiful thing. So I always come back to that. It's usually my first anchor point. I sat down, I put on some music, and I could feel myself feeling this kind of like inner sadness. And I don't even know what it was about. This is the interesting thing about emotion sometimes, is that we don't really know the source. And it's not for us to figure out. I spent a long time training myself to not judge my emotions or try to problem solve them logically, because again, an emotion, how I view it, is just an energy that we are always moving through. And it's something that needs to move, but we don't move it because we think it's wrong a lot of the time. So then we push it away because we don't want to feel it because it's uncomfortable and we don't want to be overly emotional. We don't want to be sensitive. All of these different things come up in our minds, especially as men. So when we sit down and allow ourselves to feel, we actually dissolve the root cause of the overthinking in the first place. And this is where getting out of the mind and into the body starts to solve a lot of the problems that are not really problems in those moments. So as I sat down and I listened to that music, I felt this heaviness kind of like lift and like dissipate. And my mind started to quieten down. And I ended up taking a nap. I think I fell asleep after that. And after that, I got up and I just felt this sense of clarity. It's clear. Like I couldn't even remember what I was thinking about. I couldn't even remember what the thoughts were. I just was, in hindsight, experiencing the thought version of a emotion that was unprocessed underneath the surface. So the question for you is that in those moments, can you have the compassion for yourself to check in and ask yourself, what is it that my body actually needs right now in this moment? Not what does my mind think I should be doing. Whenever I feel like something is overly complex or challenging or difficult to the extent where it feels confusing or complex, I know that there's something else going on because things are not complex, right? I'm not saying that things aren't hard. There's a difference. Things aren't complex. Things are simple. Doing the thing sometimes is hard. So if we were to break this into 3 pillars to follow when it comes to those moments where you are overthinking, you find your mind racing, you find yourself feeling this sense of inner resistance, you're not really sure why things are feeling so complex and challenging. Pause. The first step is to pause. When you catch yourself going in that direction, do your best to peel yourself back, asking yourself the question, what does my body really need right now? So the second thing, after you've paused, after you've asked the question, the next one is feel. Now, this is just feeling what is going on for you as best you can, because this can sometimes be challenging if this is not something you're used to. But even just asking the question and allowing yourself to feel something is a very powerful thing to do. So this could actually be going to the gym and feeling your body move, getting in the zone of working on a specific muscle group or doing your training program and feeling your body as you are lifting those weights or as you're moving. That's a way to feel. Another way to feel is to listen to some music. Another way to feel is to simply lie down, maybe go outside with no phone, no technology, no distractions. Whatever it is that really aligns for you, there's no right or wrong with this. Leaning into what do you feel like you need right now? But when you feel like you need something, then allow yourself to be part of that, fully present and feel that experience, whether it's the gym or movement or yoga or meditation or music, whatever the case is. When we allow ourselves to feel, we allow ourselves to get to the root, not to problem solve it, but just to let it flow, just to let it be. That in itself has an upward effect, right? Because if we look at the body is the system that we have right here. When we allow that to decompress and to relax and to just be in the present moment with whatever it is that we're feeling, then that has an upward effect. The mind calms as a byproduct of that. So that will look different for everybody. And the last step with this is to rest. It seems like such a simple thing, but in this world where we are constantly connected to technology and dopamine, and we're always working and striving towards something, and we feel like we need to constantly be in motion, what we're really telling ourselves when we're always in motion and never resting or never actually taking some space to rest, we're telling ourselves that the only way for me to accomplish anything or to achieve anything or to receive money or to receive, whatever it is that you desire, I must do something. And when we lean into rest, what we're really saying to ourselves and the world is that I don't need to constantly be in motion to receive. I don't need to constantly be pushing myself forward in order to receive a certain level of success, whether that be money, a certain outcome, a relationship, whatever the case is. I don't need to constantly do to have that. I can just have it. I trust that what I've done is enough, and who I am, more importantly, is enough, the way that I am. Rest can be one of the most powerful tools for you to just exist and be and just receive. And when you balance that with taking the actions that are going to move you forward, because it's not always about rest, but it's not always about doing either. It's that fine balance between the two. So when you have this sense of self-inquiry, you ask yourself the question, what do I need right now? You allow yourself to answer that question and lean into whatever it is that you feel. You be fully present with that. And then after that, you allow yourself to just rest. You say, hey, I'm enough the way that I am. I don't need to constantly do. I can actually just receive right now. I can let my body recuperate and do whatever it needs to do. And what oftentimes happens for me when I do this is when I wake up from a nap or when I take some rest. Rest is not always sleep, it could be something else, you just chill out. I always find a spark comes back for me and I get into this really creative state where I produce some of the best work, the best content, the best writing, or the best product ideas. And that could all be in the same day. But if I was to try and schedule that out every day, it would be very difficult because we don't know what we're going to feel at each and every moment. So when I found myself in those days where I was constantly scheduling everything out by the hour, it never worked for me because I would just go against it. And then you know what? I would get frustrated at the fact that I went against it. And I would start to feel this kind of like self judgment of I can't even stick to the schedule. But why do we have to stick to a schedule? That's the question. So it's about allowing yourself to flow with the energy of the day. And sometimes you don't feel up for the task that you were planning to do at a previous time. That's okay. Can you allow yourself to just do something that you feel more connected to in the moment, depending on what you actually need? I mean, this is like the highest level of self care. Self care is self love, self love is self care. And you allow yourself to actually receive the things that you want to experience in life without doing anything, which is such a powerful thing, especially when your default is taking action. So, dude, check in with yourself. Going through these three different phases not only allows you to master your emotions, but it allows you to say to yourself, hey, I don't always need to just do more to receive what I want. I'm allowed to just be myself. I'm allowed to just be with however I feel right now. And that's okay. That's it for today's video. I'll see you in the next one.